So for this iteration, I had several playtesters, and they only got to part way, and I'll show where they got stuck. But overall, they felt like there was a nice amount of drops and things like that. And I added just a few different things in terms of items, as well as monster placement, or number of monsters, and some aesthetic things like lighting. As you can see, the hallway was darker than this open area, and that is consistent throughout the game. I also added, I noted in the first gray box, you couldn't very well see the red key card, and if you saw, it was kind of jutted out a little bit, so it was more noticeable. And overall, I think I did a pretty good job keeping the consistency of like the plot with the hero's journey. So here I'm just demonstrating that when you get down the first set of stairs, which are now actually stairs, so the player knows where to go, it leads you directly towards the red door that is locked, and so you immediately know your objective, even if you didn't see the red key card. But what I was saying is that it starts off with a lot of monsters at the beginning, and then it gives you like these hallways that might not be as challenging, though there still are monsters, and then it brings you to another larger, more challenging room, and that's just the kind of pacing I went with this level. So here, some of the changes were there are a little bit of cover. I'm not using them because I'm using a technique one of my playtesters had, which was they could just stand here and shoot, which I added some more monsters that can shoot as well on the side, so that they can't really just stay there and not care about them. You can see them right now. And also I noticed that you can kind of be a ninja, so there's my little ninja thing. If you manage to hide yourself away in the watery area, the monsters won't go there, just because these pink ones don't really cross those borders. The switch is, again, it's like one of the only things that you can do, so usually my playtesters went through the different doors that are very easily seen and then realized they couldn't really open them themselves, and so that's how they got to the switch. So here I'm showing that the texture, I fixed it. So here this is a secret passageway, but before it was plainly visible. So here it's more of a, you have to actually try and find it, and that's something that maybe not the beginner players would know, but more advanced Doom players who know that secrets exist would know that. And I'm trying not to use that secret weapon because this shows that even without the finding the secret, you can still pass through the level. So some of these areas, the rooms that are off to the side, they're more for if you run out of ammo or if you need some health. They usually have health drops, so those are the purpose of them. If you're just trying to do critical pass, you may not have to do them. So it's just more areas for the player to explore. And then here we have this large room again. You can see some changes are this covers, and I put the blue potion, which is I think is the easiest seen item drop, and I put it right by the nearest cover, so then it leads the player there so they can realize, oh yeah, I can hide behind here and not get hit by the people who are shooting, which is one of the hardest things. This is actually where all my playtesters were dying, and that's because of the monsters that were shooting. They didn't really have a chance. I also got rid of, you can see this floating guy that just charged me. I got rid of a couple of those because that's also, it trapped the player. So here I think I have a better balance of making the player keep moving around with all these pink demons, but then not being completely overwhelmed by the flying guys who can go pretty far and can climb upstairs and everything as well. So again, here you can do the little climb up technique to get to the monsters. I also added you could have seen when I first ran through that there were some peak monsters that didn't come charging at me until they saw me, and so that's another thing that I added overall, is that I made some of the monsters what the editor says deaf, so that they wouldn't hear the sounds of the shots and then go towards them, which is why a lot of the monsters were charging in my original iteration. So here I'm just trying to do completion, so get all the monsters. And one of the techniques that is why I wanted this open area is because you can keep shooting the monsters while they're running towards you, because the closer the monster is, the more effective your shots are. But then these pink ones, since they don't have the long range attack, then that's a very effective technique. Whereas for other monsters, like these ones that can shoot, that might not be what you want to do. And so here, you can try dodging like this. This pink monster as well, I added this little chamber here. That was also to try and prevent the just rushing that was happening in the first round. So here, if you try to press a door, it doesn't work, so you realize, there's a switch right there. That's probably what it goes for. Another technique, which is why I have a lot of these doors and hallways and things, is that you can try and lead the monsters where you want to go. So here I'm trying to escape these monsters because there's quite a few of them, and so I can just go back through this hallway and I lead a few of them out, and then they're easier to deal with rather than having to stay in there and try to combat all of them at the same time. And so overall, this level is not for the beginner. Like, this is for a player who already knows the mechanics of the games and might know the different types of monsters and what they do and what strategies you can use against them. But I don't think it's too hard that a beginner can't have fun, and after a few times dying, then they figure it out. So that was one thing that I noticed that was good with my playtesters, was that they died a few times, but then each time they died, they realized something, they learned something from that mistake, and then they improved and got farther the next round, which I think is kind of what's important. That's something I think is good in the level. And the one thing that I wish I could add is checkpoints, because here the little teleportation technique that I'm using isn't that good for all the spaces, but better something than nothing, I feel like. I wanted the player to be able to explore everywhere and go back and backtrace if they don't think that they're going the right way. But yeah. So here you have the blue keycard, and you can immediately see in your line of sight the blue door that you need to get to. One thing that I didn't do was make that one ledge impassable, so you can fall off that ledge and you have to go around again. But once you defeat all the monsters, it's not that difficult. And it also, I feel like if that gives the player a little respite, if they really want it. And here you can see you can have some cover in the wall itself, or you can just go charging straight at the demon. It's up to the player. And here I fixed this as well. This wasn't working in my original submission, the wall right there, which I will get back to in a moment. So in this secret chamber, there is a chainsaw, which, again, it doesn't give an advantage to the player, but especially this one, I just think it's fun, which is why I'm going to use it. Obviously, this is not good against these types that I'm going after, but there's something that it feels rewarding, or it feels like, I just think it's a fun tool to have, and it's not completely terrible against these guys, especially because there's only 4 and they don't have, they're not shooting at me, so they have more of a cooldown time than some of the other monsters, I believe. And so finally I can get to the red keycard that I saw at the beginning of the level. You can see the door right there where you enter. And so now I know that, okay, I probably just need to go back to that one red door if I can't manage to find my way back. So I believe overall, I think this round I just tried to do more balancing in terms of, like I mentioned, the items and the monsters. I also tried to make I did make a lot of the rooms smaller or change the dimensions of the rooms just a bit so that, like, especially for that hallway right there, there's enough room that the player can kind of avoid some of the attacks. So, like, the kind of discount Wookiee, as one of my playtesters mentioned, his attacks, you can avoid them going side to side if you're sneaky about it, which kind of, I feel like, again, is another nice ninja technique, maybe. But either way, there are still enough items that it might be a little bit too many ammo, but I feel like especially for beginner players or people who are going the first round, they're really necessary and they don't know all the techniques.